the can rather than the can't. Like I underestimate Thomas all the time, and he's always surprising me. And then I'm always like, oh, Thomas, I wasn't going to underestimate him. And that's probably going to happen forever. He's probably going to be surprising me forever. And even now, like he's barely 7, and I still have an assumption internally that he's never going to have a job. I just do. Hello, mate.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm all right, mate. How are you?
I'm very well.
Good. Where are we today, mate?
We're at Ambitious About Autism. Well, let us guess, Jolanta, where are we today?
We are at Ambitious College, based in West Thames College in Isleworth in West London.
A fantastic facility. We had the tour as well.
We did. Very impressed.
It's amazing.
It is amazing.
It's amazing. We'll come back to that a little bit later. But, Jolanta, it might be great just to tell us a little bit about your journey and how you ended up where you are with Ambitious About Autism.
So I'm Chief Executive of Ambitious About Autism. I've been doing this for about 16 years. And I was previously involved in the voluntary sector. So I was already working in things like, I worked for ICANN, which was a charity for children with speech and language difficulties, now renamed. And I worked in benefits and grants, supporting people access benefit and grants. So I was already in the voluntary sector, and I saw this role and it just spoke to me because of the opportunity in autism, but also I'm a mum of an autistic young man who's 21.
Wow. And during that 16 years, what have you noticed that's really changed?
Oh, I think everything's changed. I think people's understanding of autism has changed enormously. I think in those days, the focus was very much on a particular profile of autism. And I think there was a lot of focus on teaching children to change. And I think that has really, really changed. I think we have a much broader understanding of autism and acceptance of autism. And I think the focus is much more on the world adjusting to support autistic people, and an understanding that we all think differently, and the world is made up of people with different approaches to thinking and being. And I think that's been an enormous change in those 16 years.
Yeah.
Amazing. So you've got a son, he's 21.
Yeah.
He's 21. What's he doing now?
He is just leaving college to go to a supported internship.
Great. So for him, if he's 21, you've seen that change obviously professionally, but you've seen that with your son through 21 years and then 16 years of that. You've been in the system.
Yeah.
So how has that helped you direct bringing up your son at all? Or has it helped you the other way around, where the job you've been doing has been kind of directed a lot by how your son's managed?
I think both ways, but I would say the thing that really has helped me is to meet and talk to lots of different people, and particularly to autistic adults. I think it's really useful for parents of autistic children who are young to speak to autistic adults, to kind of adjust aspirations, pathways, possibilities. I think sometimes when you have a young child, it can feel very isolating, but actually seeing a way forward has been really important. And I think that's been important for me as a parent, and it's also been really important for me in my work.
Yeah, I'm just obviously walking, like we've had a bit of a walk around here today and met some of the students. It's helped me a little bit just because I've got a 7-year-old, he's going to be 7 next week, and what happens in the future when he's 16. Obviously we know our relationship with Ambitious About Autism is, a lot of it is because of that. It's because you guys help these young adults out in the future. It's helped me just meeting some of them today and the setting that they've been in and the confidence that they've got. Just see a little window into what my son's life might be like. So that's been great. Ambitious About Autism, I mean, I just think we talked about this before, is responsible a large part because of us going to Paris to do the half marathon.
There would be no Autism Dadcast without Ambitious About Autism. The algorithm worked, so it put the Paris half marathon kind of advert, if you'd like, on my phone, and I thought it'd be different to running around Manchester. Let's go to Paris, and I needed someone to do it with, and that's how I got in touch with you.
And and it wouldn't have come up on my feed because you'd done some half marathons before, hadn't you? I definitely hadn't explored doing any marathons whatsoever, so it was definitely only your feed that was coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And wouldn't be on my feed either.
No. It is now. Now it's all over my feed.
Yeah, now that's all we ever see, isn't it? But yeah, so this is why Ambitious About Autism has a real strong place in our hearts, is that there would be no kind of autism dadcast. There wouldn't be our friendship as well. So we obviously have a soft spot for them, and we're happy to keep running everywhere on behalf of Ambitious About Autism. But it's a fundraising, and that's a vital part of what is required. But a bit of understanding, where does that money go? Such as after the London Marathon, when finally the figure comes in.
Yeah, so fundraising is our lifeblood. We wouldn't be able to do the things that we do. So it helps us providing direct services for autistic children and young people. We're not funded for all of the sort of developments of buildings and equipment and all of those things. It helps us on our sort of national programmes, things like employability and our youth network. All of those things are funded by voluntary income. And it helps most of all around campaigning and changing policy and practice nationally. And I think those are all the sort of charitable things that we do that are really, really important. So we're not just delivering services for a few autistic children and young people, which is brilliant. It changes their lives. But we're able to take that out to the world and start changing practice across the UK. And that's really, really important because not everybody gets a chance to come to an Ambitious About Autism school or college.
And it's a hell of a place.
It is.
I mean, it's blown me away. All the facilities here are just, it's nothing I'd ever expected. What was that thing we walked in before?
Was it the cubby?
That cubby. I mean, I didn't even know those things existed. It looks like something from a futuristic sci-fi film where, you know, when people are in space for years and then they need a little bit of something in that little room. For anyone that doesn't know, go and have a look at them. You put a code in? You put a code in. You have your own sensory diet. So you get your own sensory exposure that you need in that moment. And it's there just to help all of us, anyone, to feel happier. And I don't like the word regulated because it's not there to regulate you. It's there to just help you feel happier and more comfortable. Yeah, and that's you diet. That's interesting. A sensory diet. So it's personalised to you. Yes. And you say what mood you're kind of what you're feeling now,
and then there's a code for it's individualised for the person as well.
That's crazy.
I'd love one of those.
we need more of those around the UK, definitely. But going back to kind of the work that Ambitious does. Obviously, we have the colleges that we're in at the moment. Can you talk us through kind of the age groups and the work they do with the students? Because obviously, Thomas, as you say, is going to be 7 next week. Lydia's 5. As parents, we think that's a long way away. Yeah. But one thing we are learning is that'll be upon us within a flash. Yeah. But yeah, if you can just tell us a little bit about that work.
So we have 3 special schools, and they will support children from 4 to 19 years old. And our schools are all slightly different. So they support children with different needs, and they were developed because there was a gap. So we don't just run something for the sake of it. What we try and do is understand the gap and understand, could things be done better for autistic children and young people. We developed post-19 provision. And when we did that, I remember I joined Ambitious About Autism because there wasn't anything, particularly for young people who are autistic with learning disability. There was just this assumption their education ended when they finished school. They go home with their parents or they go into a care setting. That's it. There was just no sense of aspiration that you had a future, that you could keep learning, and that you had something to look forward to. So we opened London's only autism provision at that point for autistic young people with learning disability. And the aim there is to really give young people the chance to prepare for adulthood. I know that's a bit of a slogan, but literally pursue those vocational learning pathways that they want to. Think about employability, think about enterprise, think about the skills you might need to live away from your parents one day. And really, really important. We also have then developed supported internships. So we'll have 6 by this September. And that's where young people are still college students, but they do all of their learning inside the employer. So you go to an employer, you do a few hours maybe of learning, but you spend your whole day doing work experience basically. And at the end of it, the aim is at least 70% of young people will have a job. And it's for young people who are autistic with perhaps a moderate learning difficulty. So it's young people who really wouldn't have a chance to get a job through the normal routes that we have at the moment. And then we have all of our national work, and that's focused on giving young people a voice. So our youth network is really about young people being able to support each other. and meet each other, because quite often young people say to us they haven't had a chance to meet other autistic young people, but young people also to be able to influence the world around them. We entered employability work a long time ago before people were talking about it, and our focus there is on getting young people the right careers, education, and that sounds very formal, but all young people should have an aspiration for what they do want to do in their adult life and have that support to think about how to get there. But also training employers on supporting autistic people in the workplace. And we've had some amazing partnerships and seen really amazing results where even autistic, I think people don't realise that even autistic people who've got degrees have struggled to get work, and actually they're the most disadvantaged of all disability groups in university. And that's because they just haven't been prepared for work. So doing that work's really, really important. And then providing lots of information support for families. And last but not least is really influencing change nationally. So that's both policy and practice. And of course, at the moment, big focus on SEND reforms, but also on a prevalence review at Department of Health and Social Care.
Wow.
That's a lot, isn't it?
So, obviously, the programmes, the learnings you set up for the students, is it very individualised then for the student and kind of what destination they want to get to? Or is there a it's not going to be a national curriculum as such, is it? But yeah, is it very individualised?
So 100%, our focus is on helping young people achieve their outcomes and their destinations. And that might not always be clear when a child is 5, 6, 7 years old, but it's about feeling your way to that adulthood and starting off with all options being open from early years, because I think too many doors close for autistic young people very early. And we have personalised programmes. Some young people in some of our settings will follow more of a national curriculum, so they will be taking GCSEs, etc. But even then, very personalised approach to how to support them to get that. And for other young people, it's weaving in some formal learning around vocational pathways, but with a big emphasis on personal development and lifelong outcomes, employability, all of those things. So it is very, very personalised, very flexible. But most of all, I think what we sometimes maybe lack in the education system is a real focus on purpose. So for everybody, all of us need to have a sense of purpose. So education isn't there for the sake of just having education. It's there to get someone to a place to where they want to be and where their family want them to be as well.
And when you remove that purpose from a child, then that's just incredibly difficult for that individual then.
I think it's very difficult for that individual, but it's very difficult for the family as well, because they can't see a pathway. They can't see, once somebody said to me, what's it like for families supporting young people who are autistic? And I would say, it's kind of like walking in the woods down a broken pathway without any light and without any destination. And you have to provide that light and that destination for people to feel they're aiming for something. And even for those young people with really complex support needs, I always believe we have to think about purpose. We have to think about what will they wake up wanting to do and how will we help them to do that? Where will they be when they're 30?
I never thought about that, about the family needing that as well. If I think of Thomas, knowing I know the direction that not only he wants to go in or that he's capable of going in, that would help me. Because you can help guide them as well. You're all going on the same journey with them, aren't you?
Yeah,
I never really thought of it like that.
And it's a world of possibilities, because I think quite often people can't imagine what, for example, Thomas might do. But I think that's the limit of their imagination. That's not a limit of what Thomas can do. Yeah. And so we have to reinvent what we mean about purpose and work and enterprise. I'll give an example. We supported a young man who was autistic. He had a severe learning difficulty. He was non-speaking. You could list it all, but there was joy in his world, and there were things he loved doing. He loved Google Maps, and he liked being out and about. So we got him 2 jobs. He delivered leaflets for an optician. And he actually went once a week and sorted out all the cutlery in a big catering company. And he loved doing it. No one else loved doing it. But it meant for him, he woke up expecting to do something. But also it's about societal change. People expected to see him. Those employers would have asked, where is he today? Yeah. And that produces a sense of belonging. Yeah. But also a sense of safety, because other people care about you and other people want to know where you are. And that's really important societally as well.
Are employers becoming more invested or accepting in, as you kind of said, bringing individuals on board, or just having more awareness within their companies and organisations? Is there more of an acceptance now, or is it more of a, hey, I better say the right stuff, put some lip service out there, but deep down, I'm not really that?
I've seen a massive change with employers. I remember when we started Employ Autism, I was on really heavy sales mode about why you need to do this, and usually I only managed to get a door open where there was a parent
Yes.
or an autistic person who opened that door. I've seen a massive change because I think A, people have realised that they're missing out a whole big skill set, but B, they've realised that they've already got a lot of employees with differences who perhaps haven't opened up and will perform better if they're allowed to be open. And I think people have realised that companies have a role to play in our society as well, that they have got a role to play in shaping our society. So I have seen a massive change. I still think it's usually led by organisations where they can see a skill set that they're lacking, or it's led by people with lived experience in organisations. I think the big societal shift has to come from government policy, making it more automatic and providing the support to employers to actually be able to do this routinely.
You talk about policy. Have you been involved at all in the recent reforms or the white paper?
I have. Ambitious About Autism are very involved in influencing the white paper, the prevalence review, Department of Health and Social Care, the stuff going on around the Milburn review. So I think what I would say is it's great people are talking about SEND, because they didn't talk about it for a very long time. I think it was seen as a Cinderella part of all the policy areas. I think it was also seen as being in a too difficult box. It doesn't fit our mainstream ideas, so we're not going to talk about it. So I think it is great that we're talking about it. I think the big shift we need to do is we need to recognise it as an opportunity. I think there's a lot of conversation about burden and the need to make adjustments because I don't think we really understand why they're because. I think we need to talk about what the purpose is of all of this. And that needs to be tied up with a big autism strategy that says we are doing this because we want people to achieve this, we want society to achieve this. And I think that's why quite a lot of the policy agenda is struggling, because it's not joined up and it's not focused on long-term purpose.
Yeah, you've really seen a lot of change, haven't you? I mean, if I just think of what's changed in the last 6 years, it's been a lot. So yeah, I can imagine 21 years and 16 years you've been working with that autism, Ambitious About Autism, you have seen a lot. I
think it has changed and it hasn't. I think there's been a lot of legislative change, there's been a lot of guidance, there's been a lot of stuff. But I think if you asked children, young people and families about their actual experience on the ground, I'm not sure it has changed wholesale. I think it's changed for those who perhaps are more connected and know how to access that support. I'm not sure really if you asked the average parent and the average child about their experience in the classroom, whether that has actually improved. The exclusion rates, the rates of, we know from our research that 70% of autistic young people are missing out on education. They're pretty high rates. So I'm not sure if on the ground the experience has changed. It's definitely changed. If you walk into a supermarket, you get more empathy, I think. The public acceptance is definitely shifting. But I think there's things that are also challenging. I think that we haven't quite focused on purpose and value for money. What do we, I think the departments are competing for money, and I think they need to come together on a joint vision to achieve something for autistic people. I think there's some backward steps in terms of rhetoric around autism at the moment. I'm in my heart, I don't believe people believe that stuff. In my heart, I really genuinely believe that when people interact with autistic people, they generally want to help and they generally want to understand. So I think a lot of that narrative is political, media. I don't think it's really...
Why do you think that is then? Why would they go down that route?
I think we just live in a world where there's... division is encouraged, and a lot of algorithms are driven by misinformation, disinformation. They're not, positive stories don't give you the algorithm. I think negative stories do. And so it's easy to sort of pick on autism as a dividing area. I just don't believe that's how people really think. I think most people would rather a united society, would rather help out than not help out. Would rather that we progressed rather than regressed. I just genuinely believe that's how people are. And what we just see is a bit of a nasty battleground on the kind of social media front and a little bit in policy. I think political world has been tainted by trying to find divisions.
And you think this has become a political football now?
For some, not everyone. I genuinely meet people in all parties, in all areas that want to help. But I think it's a bit of an easy area for division. But my answer to it is always, I try and be helpful. I try and explain. And I think that removes the division, is I never really get too offended. I think my job is to be that happy explainer, the happy helper. I always say I'm the happy helper. If you don't understand, I'll try and help you understand. I try and listen to people's perspectives, because I think sometimes people's perspectives are born out of something historic. Maybe they experienced as kids. You often hear older people will say, we never had people like that in our classroom. I don't know what the fuss is about. And I say, yeah, but they didn't go to school, did they? Or they were institutionalised, or they're at home with their parents. Yeah. They were there. You just didn't meet them. So I try and listen and explain rather than judge. And I think one of the most important things is never enemise people for holding a different view than you have. Always try and help build that bridge, help build that understanding.
We need a lot of that.
We do, yeah. I think it's just the norm now to push somebody away if they don't have the similar sort of belief with you.
Yeah, it's this
which doesn't
taking sides thing.
Doesn't allow for dialogue, does it?
No. We need a lot of not enemising people. I've never heard it said like that. So what was the age range again that you have a student starting at 4?
Yeah, but we help people with information and support from birth. So families will be contacting us and looking for information online. And we go to 25, although I have to say that we often support people come back to us post 25.
Really?
Just with extra support, extra hints. Our charitable aims are children and young people. But, that support doesn't end at 25. People need help beyond that. But that's our focus area, because that's where our skill is and that's what we're good at. And we work with a lot of charities that support into adulthood. So we work with all sorts of national, local charities. And I chair something called the Autism Alliance. And that's all the autism organisations get together. Yeah. And we will support each other and refer on to each other across the UK.
That's really good. Okay. So those early years, I'm asking for a specific reason. Those early years, obviously, destinations are a little bit more difficult to figure out at 4. So what is school like in your schools at those younger ages? What kind of skills are they learning?
Again, our schools are all slightly different. There'll be children in, for example, our Rise school, who'll be more in the kind of national curriculum, but still very personalised, and with therapeutic support woven into every single day, so woven into every single lesson, every single class, every single day. And that's a principle that we provide integrated support for children and young people, and really understand their needs and try and tailor the package, tailor the support towards whatever they need. I would like to say that their day is joyous, but that's not true for every young person. Some young people find school really difficult, but we try and adapt to whatever their need is. So no day is, I would say, standardised or the same. Some children and young people love coming to school. They find the structure comforting and joyous. They enjoy lessons. They enjoy being around peers. Other young people will find that really difficult for a time or forever. And what we try and do is respond flexibly and make school a place they want to come to. That's the key message, I think, throughout the UK and any policy change, is we need to make schools somewhere young people want to be. And young people have such a different range of experiences and needs that we really need to think about that. We really need to think about, how does this school become a joyous place for a young person? And how do we make learning a joyful thing, not a burden? And how do we make sure we focus on their strengths? Sometimes education over focuses on what people can't do and makes them do it over and over again. I think we've all seen that, where you have to keep doing the same assessment, the same thing. Actually, for some young people, yes, we could work harder and adapt to help them to do that. But sometimes we have to accept that they're just going to follow a different path, and they're going to learn differently and focus on their strengths. And I think as children get older, we really need to focus on strengths, and not torture them, which I think it is torture them with things they just can't do, or waste years getting them to do things over and over again that will be of no benefit long term to them. We need to focus on what's going to benefit them long term.
Is that, from a policy point of view, or from Ambition About Autism or any other establishment, is that easy to do, to change or to tailor a plan to a child against what maybe a local authority wants, or what's expected by the wider world? Is that becoming easier, or is it still a major challenge? Are people accepting of it?
I think there are people who've got the culture in their education settings right. I think there are places where the governing bodies, the heads, really care about SEND. And I think the biggest shift we have to make as a nation is cultural. So that we have to accept that everybody belongs, and there is no one pathway, and that we can learn how to support someone. It can be done. It's not that we can't be done. And that we need to be more flexible. And I think it's a cultural shift, which is then followed by a sort of skills, system, policies, process shift. But I know the places I visit where that cultural shift has happened, you see much more acceptance, much more flexibility, and a sense that there is no right and wrong, that if a young person comes, I give an example. I remember working with one head who said to me, I've got a child, he hasn't been in school for months, and he wants to come in his pyjamas. And I found it really interesting that that was a debate. And I said, that's great if he comes, isn't it? Comes in his pyjamas, who cares? And he said, yeah, but what if all the other kids want to come in their pyjamas? I said, do you think they really want to come in their pyjamas? Of course they want to come in their pyjamas. If he wants to come in his pyjamas, he should come in his pyjamas. And I remember that was a light bulb moment for him. He looked at me and he said, okay, I'm starting to get it. That he wants to come to school in his pyjamas. That's okay.
The important bit is he wants to come to school.
He wants to come to school. The pyjamas will one day not be an issue. One day he might decide he wants to wear something else. But I think that the rigidity is what causes a lot of challenges, I think, in schools.
So that was the major stumbling block.
And it's interesting as well, this a lot of what we're talking about isn't necessarily limited to children or young adults with neurodivergence, is it? If I think back to school and the way it was then, and everything I was forced to do that did not suit me or the way I learn, I left school with 6 Ds, and I think I had 1 C, 6 Ds and 2 E's, and my 2 E's were in maths and English. And I wasn't, the way I learn, I didn't figure out until I was mid-20s in the military doing an exam. The way I learned was not shown to me while I was at secondary school. So all the maths, my mum, bless her, she used to put the times tables up in the bathroom on colourful sheets of paper, just thinking that I could just sit there and read it and learn it. And that's kind of what a lot of school felt like that to me. And I left school not really knowing the things I should know because I don't learn that way. So typically the education system for typical people is still very archaic. So it's certainly going to be that way for neurodivergent people. So yeah, I can totally relate to that. No, honestly.
So my background, I was head boy.
Were you?
Yeah, I was head boy.
You were head boy?
You better believe it. And I was very good at just memorising.
Yeah.
And being able to pass an exam.
Yeah.
That was it. I was drilled into me. Memorise this information.
Yeah.
Get it back down. You passed.
Yeah, me and you were like polar opposites then. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, We were forced into the same system.
Yeah, forced into the same system, and it just... honestly, I tried so hard. I was sitting there reading these pages of times tables. Even now, I don't know my times tables.
Come on, trigonometry's helped you out, surely.
Yeah, well, you know.
Yeah.
Trigonometry, goodness me. Gosh, that's brought out a kind of scary thing in me. But I think you're absolutely right. That I think with education, we really, really need to think about how we instill a love of learning in young people. Because we are all lifelong learners. So if you kill that joy early, then you're basically, that you're actually setting someone else up badly for life. Because actually, if you love learning in one way or another, whatever it is you learn in school or college, whether people think it's going to lead to a job or not, it kind of isn't relevant. What's relevant is that you've got a joy of learning, you're opening to learning, you found out about yourself, you know how you can learn, you found out how to ask people for help, you found out what you can ask for, what adjustments you need, and you're kind of then well set up for life. If you leave school thinking I'm never doing that again, any of it, then that's quite a bad outcome. So I think
it's such a good point. That the lifetime learning, it's setting you up early on. I was actually lucky that I was in the military. I was a dog trainer, and one of the exams was around explosives and drugs and all this kind of stuff. Very technical, chemical components within this, and it's only because I really loved what I was doing that I just found a way. And after flying absolutely past those with flying colours, those exams, and that then reset me. Oh, I am capable of doing more. And then I did. I found I loved learning again. Like I could sit and talk about astrophysics and quantum physics, but I don't understand it fully because nobody does. But I found that, okay, if I'm actually interested in something, I can learn it. Whereas at school, I felt, maths... God, this is all getting a bit depressing. Maths, I remember my teacher, Mr. Howard, I'm sure you're a lovely guy now, but he used to almost shame you if you didn't know. So if you didn't put your hand up because you were scared, because you didn't know the answer, he'd get you up on the blackboard, yes kids, blackboards back then, and try and force you to give an answer you didn't know by writing on chalk on the chalkboard. And he knew I wouldn't be able to do it. He knew. So he knew that when I got up there, stood in front of everybody, that I was going to be embarrassed and felt ashamed and be sent back down to sit down on my chair again. And now, that's so archaic, thinking that teachers did that to students, to young people. And that was, I think, maybe year 8, year 9. And that just destroyed me for the rest of my school life. So, it's so important. And what you guys are doing is phenomenal.
But it's about values and culture, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is about values and culture, that there should really have been a head teacher who didn't tolerate that in their teachers, who said, well, it doesn't really matter if he does well in his maths. What he's got to do is feel comfortable being here and coming here.
Yeah.
And we need to try some different ways, maybe, make it more functional, make it more meaningful. And that's what education's about, really. And also the other thing I think that we're going to see is our understanding of how people learn is going to really evolve, I think, with technology as well, because we'll be able to see in real time how they're absorbing information, and we'll be able to understand what adjustments to put in place. So I think that there is a kind of technological revolution that's going to come, which is going to help us to really understand learning a lot better for people. And also, the really important thing is, if you don't do well at school, it's not the end of the world.
100%.
We're sitting here today in a further education college that's supporting a lot of young people who didn't maybe thrive at school, but they're getting a chance here to really follow their passion and follow the vocational learning pathway they really want to do. And they'll have suddenly discovered, oh, like you, I can learn. I can. I'm doing something I'm interested in. Maybe some of it's not that comfortable, but I'm going to push myself a bit because I really love the subject. And I think it's really important that exams aren't the end. They're not the end. They're a means to an end, and we have to think about the end.
100%.
I just remember being told
how great you were because you were head boy.
Well, I did get told, get told that quite often. I still do now. But I do remember the weight of those exams of GCSEs.
Yeah.
Being told by teacher after teacher, these GCSEs will define your life.
Yeah.
That's it. You will either make it or you won't.
Yeah,
and it was that you must now go do A levels. You must then go on to university. And I got no idea what I want to do. But you have to be there.
Yeah.
It was that expectation.
It's and I think, to be fair, there's a lot of pressure because of the whole system as it is. There's a lot of pressure on teachers to make sure that they're getting those results as well. Which, I mean, even my son, he's going to turn 19 in October. He would tell me stories where, I mean, he's one of those kids, like, he just flew through. He just flew through school. Very clever lad. And he would still tell me stories, which is only a few years back, of other kids that necessarily weren't doing that well, and he could tell the teachers weren't putting the effort into those ones because they were almost like lost leaders. Like, okay, let's just, all right, these are my core A levels.
These are
put all my effort into these
make
guys.
Me look good.
And that's very recent.
You say kind of lost leaders there, and that leads into a conversation we were having before we started recording. Obviously, the white paper and send-betweeners going into mainstream school. Do you believe kind of the system would see a lot of these children as lost leaders and just be thinking, we'll just get them through the day, but they're not the ones that are going to get us up the leaderboard or get us the praise that we deserve as a school or an academy?
Well, I mean, first of all, 70% of autistic children are in mainstream, so we have to recognise that mainstream does need to function for them.
Yeah.
And not all of those children probably benefit from that environment, but the majority would, because they're on a kind of pathway to getting the kind of learning and pathways into employment or university or training from those mainstream schools, and so that's important. I meet people all the time who do a great job. So I think it's important to kind of celebrate the gains, because otherwise those people are just wasting their time if we don't recognise them.
Of course.
And I think there are people who really, again, I think it starts with culture. It starts with a school that understands why it exists. It doesn't exist just to churn exams. It exists to help young people to learn, thrive and achieve, as we say. It's not just about exams. And I do believe that there's a lot more mainstream can do. I think it requires a big shift culturally. I think mainstream's been very, very over-focused on narrow academic attainment and not broad enough learning, and has really been focused on those that achieve qualifications, that go on to university, etc. They have a lot of focus. But also being focused on those who don't achieve, just continuing to put them through the same machine over and over again, whether they pass or fail. So I think there is a rethink culturally around the purpose of education, who belongs in education. Everyone does. Not sure that's always felt everywhere. What pathways are there to achieving in adulthood? Not everyone needs to go to university. People can do lots of other things very successfully. My goodness, if you're a plumber these days, you're going to be pretty well off, aren't you?
Oh, yes.
So I think there's a rethink that has to happen. I do believe that the system needs that cultural shift. I'm not sure it's made that cultural shift with the curriculum reviews. Behaviour policies are very, very archaic, I think, still. I do think the resource needs to go there. I'm not sure it is there even with the promised resource through these reforms. A lot of the funding is one-off funding for training, etc. So I think there's a real thought around how we resource that longer term. But I still really, really believe that there is a place for specialist provision. And that's purely because there are young people who need different environments, need personalised curriculum, need that extra bit of support. And I think we need to value that specialist system. At the moment, it's been spoken as it's of value in order to improve mainstream. I think it should be seen as value in itself. And when people don't talk about specialist provision in sort of warm words, it makes me worry that there's maybe a little bit of ableism in there, which is kind of, we don't want to talk about the forgotten few because we don't really understand those young people. We don't really see a future for them. And I think every child should be championed. And so every provision should be championed.
That's me.
That's a really, really, really good point about the can rather than the can't. You know, like I underestimate Thomas all the time. Like, you know, and he's always surprising me. And then I'm always like, oh, I told myself I wasn't going to underestimate him. And that's probably going to happen forever. He's probably going to be surprising me forever. And even now, like I think, I mean, he's barely 7, and I still have an assumption internally that he's never going to have a job. I just do. And I know that there's probably going to be some point where, like some of the examples you've given, he's going to be someone like this potentially.
That's probably more self-preservation as a parent.
Yeah, I'm
isn't it?
sure there's a little bit of self-preservation
yeah.
in there. You know, you just setting out expectations so that they don't be disappointed down the road. But ultimately, I mean, he surprises me every day with the ridiculous things he does. I mean, yesterday, for example, I didn't tell you about this. Yesterday, I was playing with him on the bed, and me and Mish were just on the bed. It was quite hot, and he came in, and me and him were just playing and messing around. And I left and went downstairs, and I think I went to do some work on the computer. I sat down, and my wife rang me and said, this is a first. I went, watch, goes, he's just come back in the room and then got his iPad and typed in daddy. Like, where's daddy? Like, he was just here. Where's he gone? Oh, wow. Like, he's never done that. Like, asking for me or his mum. He's never asked for either of us. That's the first time he's ever gone, like, he was like, and Mish was like, what's up? And he went, daddy. And I was like, he's never spelt my name out before. Lo and behold, Thomas. Yeah. That was in the moment. I come upstairs like, I'm here, and he's like, yeah, I'm done now. Don't really want you.
I've done that.
I'm like, oh,
I've moved on now.
Should have come quicker.
Yeah.
So no, I agree. We need to be optimistic about all of the journeys these kids can go on. Kids, young adults. I'd love it for him to end up someone like this when he's older. Like,
if you could
West
copy
London,
and paste this into places like Shropshire.
But
it would be amazing.
they are. I mean, I think the world is changing, and we always welcome people to come and see things and share everything with them, because we're a relatively small organisation. We're never going to be able to do it all. So for me, that partnership and that collaboration and inspiring people and showing them it can be, and that's what we try and do, is we're not opening colleges and schools just for the sake of it. We try and find that gap, try and inspire people to show that it can be done. It you know, it's not easy. The system does work against places like this, but it can be done. And share that knowledge and share that inspiration. So I think it's really important. I wanted to say something, because I think sometimes also parents feel guilty about feeling down about their child. I think there's a lot of guilt, and sometimes we can be a bit Pollyanna-ish, like, you know, just focus on the amazing things that are going to happen. I think it's also about accepting that the journey is bumpy, and that some things won't happen. You know, sometimes things won't happen, but it's about that acceptance is really, really important for families, not being made to feel as though they should always feel happy or always feel it's all going to be okay. It's not always going to be okay, but accepting your position. And I think the biggest thing that's needed there is the support for families. And it simply isn't there. There's lots of talk about waiting lists for children and young people, for assessment, for mental health. I don't think we even have the conversation about what families should be having. And I think how you shape family also shapes the future for a young person. I often in my work think that the children who fare worse are the ones who've had the least family support, where the families really can't cope. And it's not because they don't care, they don't have skills, they just haven't had that wraparound support. So I think helping families to come to terms with their position, helping families to have support where it's difficult, and helping families to see potential, even if it's going to be bumpy, is so important. As important as support for children.
That's a great point, and that seems an obvious thing that we hadn't talked about. Is it's almost like that whole analogy of putting your oxygen mask on first so you can help your child. Same there. I think we talk a lot about dads accepting, because once you accept this situation that you didn't expect you were going to be in, and you're feeling terrible about, you know, your child and what their future might be, the longer you kind of, and I get it and it's fine and you need to do it, but the longer you kind of wallow and don't get help, the longer your child is going in part without you and what you could do to support them. So yeah, it's such a good point. If the mental health of the family is being helped, then ultimately your child is and young adult is getting helped.
And understanding your own emotions.
Yeah,
because the thing is, you know, we're
sure.
not taught that, are we, at school or anywhere, about understanding your own emotions. And I think when you're supporting a child with special needs, your buttons are pushed more maybe than with other children, and you don't really understand how to process that. So helping you to process that and cope with that is so important, because otherwise it's cooped up as anxiety, stress, depression, frustration, all of those things. And I'm not saying those things can entirely go away, but if you're aware about how how things are affecting you emotionally, you can process more easily. As you said, particularly in the early years, because you are comparing, you're feeling lost, you're feeling maybe some disappointment. But the reality is someone helping you to process that is so important.
Yeah. That's really good. Recognise it. It's one thing to feel the emotions, isn't it? But sometimes you don't really understand what it is you're feeling. So like grief was a good one.
Yeah.
So like early on, you could only identify grief as like the close. I feel like I've lost someone. I feel like someone's passed away. And then you talk to other parents. Me and you had that 4-hour conversation in the middle of, Birmingham Airport. And you kind of go, yeah, grief feels like the word closest to this. It's not grief because no one's actually died, but that's the kind of feeling. And when you can help other parents identify, that thing you're feeling, it's kind of like this, isn't it? And they're like, yes, and you're like, and it's totally normal. You're feeling that too. Is it totally normal? You're feeling that.
You feel unique, don't you, in the early days because you a lot of us don't know anybody else that went through it.
No.
And you need to really take an interest when it affects you directly.
Yeah.
And you just feel that everything is unique to yourself. And until you start going through, hey, there's another Facebook group here, or I've got chatting to this person.
Yeah.
And then your network starts to widen and you start to understand it better. But I think it's a huge part of the journey, shall we say, that is under-discussed.
That bumpy journey.
Bumpy journey without a map.
Yeah, without a map.
In the dark, without a torch. So, I totally get that. Kind of looking forward to the future. Where does Ambitious About Autism go? What's the next couple of years looking like?
So really exciting. So we've got a new strategy coming out in the autumn. I think having learnt everything that we've learnt, our focus is really on that system change. We really had a long think about the things we've done well, where we've had successes, but also what dial hasn't shifted. And so our focus is really going to be about trying to make the education system more holistic and to own that whole journey for autistic children and young people. So I'll give examples. Schools should be able to assess and meet a child's needs when they come through their door. They should really be able to, and also assess if they can't meet that need and they need some help. That shouldn't be necessary that you wait for years and years for someone to diagnose a child and then, get an EHCP and all of that. So really focusing on schools being able to provide that early support. Schools really should be able to support children to have a greater sense of belonging. It shouldn't be the case that if a child doesn't attend anything, doesn't have any friends outside school, doesn't go to any youth club, that is okay, because that's part of your development, your informal learning, your building of your own networks, your future relies on that. So really schools should be thinking about, okay, so that child actually did maths quite well, but actually I do see him on his own in the playground and his mum says he doesn't have any friends. That should be something to think about. And long-term employability should be something schools should be thinking about. So our strategy is going to be really focused on that system change and getting our education system to be more holistic, because if we can get that right, we won't have as many waiting lists everywhere else. We won't have a system that exports a problem, because at the moment what we have is a system that exports a problem. Can't deal with it in school, it's a health problem. Can't deal with, they didn't get a job, not my problem, that's going to be the problem of the job centre. We have to really think about getting it right from the start, and that's going to be our focus. Our focus is also working together with people, because what we've recognised is that we can't do it alone, so we need to learn from people, but actually get them to come on a journey with us. Because if you just present something to people at the end and say, here, I did this, you should do it, most people reject that. So it's actually getting them to come on that journey with you of possibility and learning, and actually coming to the conclusion that it is possible. So that's our real focus. And it's a big one, actually. It's bigger than just running a programme and evaluating, saying, I did really brilliantly, because it's the focus is on bringing other people on that journey and really having a go at changing that culture and that system, as we talked earlier, to being something that's more holistic, more focused on possibilities, strengths, outcomes than it is at the moment. You said you left school with not great exams. That shouldn't have been the end. The conversation should have continued about what do you want to do, and where could we take you next? Not, well, we finished with you, tutty bye, which is what the conversation often is. So I think that's really, really important. And I think what's exciting about that is I think that's where the national conversation is as well. The national conversation is our education system isn't quite what it should be. And, you know, even people who've succeeded academically are struggling to get a job. And so something's not quite right in how we prepared them. We will carry on doing all the stuff around employability, around trying to get young people to connect with each other and belong. That's real foundational stuff, which we will always do. But I think really trying to get that education system to really change its culture and its purpose is a big part of what we're going to be doing.
Fabulous.
Exciting.
Excellent.
Exciting.
Excellent.
Thank you very much. Very much enjoyed the conversation. Really appreciate the tour as well.
Yeah.
Meeting some of those young adults. They're just amazing. One of them gave us a tour himself, didn't he?
Yes.
He was great.
He was fantastic. Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, you must be very proud of what you've built here, India, because it's fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
No problem at all.
Great stuff.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.